Now I got a method for my madness today. I'm not just walking around showing you guys this area and talking about how they're trying to restore the field forest environment that met the eyes of the early settlers like William Pension long ago. But I'm taking a look at the base of these oak trees, because we are under a bunch of red and some white oaks, and I'm taking a look, trying to find me some hen of the woods. One's enough. And I got to tell you, it's always been interesting to me whether or not native people harvested mushrooms. I've never found any evidence in the captivity narratives and the sources that I've used that indicated that pre-contact the native people were foraging for mushrooms. I would think they were. I mean, wouldn't you? But I've never seen any evidence of it. And mushrooms have a limited shelf life. You got to eat them quick. And really, you need to cook them. So, did they eat mushrooms? A question. Maybe some of you can answer. Maybe you've encountered primary sources indicating that they have, in fact, eaten mushrooms. So far, nothing. As I walk through this newly created grove of oak, because that's what we're looking at, a grove. And the original forested landscape of southern New England was filled with such groves. The English would write that they could ride through the forest on a horse at a full gallop and not have a problem. And I submit to you that if you come to this wildlife, that's called an impact area. Hunting is allowed here, but most of the year hunting isn't taking place, and you can kind of wander around here. This is on the border of Southwick, Massachusetts and Connecticut, and you can see a forest that really resembles the descriptions that we have from Endicott and Pension and Miles Standish and all those colonists that came here long ago and saw the woods as they looked at the moment of contact. And they're really trying to restore it, and I really give them credit for it. I think it's really progressive and far-sighted. They're not just saying, here's a bunch of land, you can hunt pheasants on it, we're going to throw pheasants here. They're actually doing an ecological experiment using fire to try to restore fire species. Very cool. So every once in a while you score, but sometimes you score too late. And what do I got right there? You see what I see? Let's go over and investigate. Oh, if I was only here a week ago. And I was thinking about coming here a week ago, and I did not. Because what we're looking at here is our friend, the chicken of the woods. There he is. Oh, and those are one of my favorite mushrooms to eat. You get them at the right time, they can be so good. But that one's gone by. But what's cool about it is with all these oaks that we're surrounded by, we know that this guy has sent out a lot of spores, and we're going to end up with a favorable blush or bloom or fruiting, whatever you want to call it, of chickens next year. So I'll be coming here a couple times, as this is not far from where I live, and investigating. And I continue to look at the base of these oaks, saying, oh, I'll bet you this. Now, it's been really dry. And I find that this dry year that we're having has been really good for getting the chicken of the woods blooming, but it hasn't been great, at least for me, for the hen of the woods. Mushrooms are the craziest people, I like to say. So walking along, look at this beautiful forest though. And it's not normal to see this. In New England, we don't see this anymore. This is that field forest environment where you had swamps, where you had rough terrain. You'd get copses of trees, groves, where certain species would cluster. You know, they'd be mixed with others, but there'd generally be oaks, there'd generally be chestnuts, there'd generally be beech or ash. And then you'd have a field and then another grove. And look at what we have here, though. You could ride a horse at a gallop right through this forest and not get your head taken off by low-hanging branches or by all the brush. You notice, as you see this, our typical New England forests are regrowth and they're thick, and you don't get this sweeping view into the distance that I'm getting in this forest, which is really wild. It's a wild perspective. I just came back from hunting in the Adirondacks, and the area that I was hunting was a regrowth area. It had been logged back in the 40s, and you had areas where you had zero visibility because there were so many beaches regrowing, which, as you know, is sad because our beaches are in trouble. Look at this landscape out in the fall. Beautiful, beautiful fall day. It's actually too hot. It's in the 80s. It's 79, 80 degrees. I actually want to ride a horse through here. I'll put on my 1675 great coat with my plumed hat and my hanger, and I'll come out and then ride around like I'm one of Pension's trained band members. So look, as I come out into the actual field, you guys can come on a hike here if you want. What a great hike. You park in Southwick over here. It's on South Loomis Street, and you can hike all the way into Connecticut, way down there. And there's another access point way down there. And there's a demarcated boundary where there's a line of boulders separating Connecticut from Massachusetts. This is a beautiful, unique environment to take a stroll around, and a historic one that will bring you back to the time when the native people had sculpted the landscape for their own needs. I've had people say that they enjoy my videos because of my stream of consciousness style. And as I'm standing here, I'm thinking about the fact that the native people met the land that I'm standing on at the end of the last ice age, or the beginning of the Holocene. This area would have been a glacial waste. We would have seen the retreating glaciers to our north and all the meltwater and the piles of moraine that they've left behind. You've seen pictures of glaciers in the Himalayas and in Alaska. I'm sure some of you have probably even seen them up front, and they're quite messy. So they're retreating, and they're leaving a completely scoured landscape behind. It's all sand and clay, and there's very little life. And what you end up with is the beginnings of a meadow, right? You'll get grasses that'll start to grow and occasional bushes. Then you'll see maybe some birch, but probably before that even some conifers. And you'll be thinking spruce, those austere looking spruce that you see up in northern Canada on the Canadian Shield. You would have seen the spruce start in groves, and then you would have seen a few birches get in there, and some poplar maybe, and they would have started to populate the land. So we would have gone from a glacial waste to a tundra to a taiga with the spruce. And then we would start seeing mixed hardwoods. And this is going on over a few thousand years. As the glaciers retreat and the warming climate, the Holocene, allows for the recapture of the area by plants and animals. This is the time of the megafauna. So you got the massive Irish elk. I don't know, they had an elk like that here. I don't know if they called it the Irish elk, but with the 10-foot wide antlers, and you got the ground sloths and the woolly mammoths and the mastodons and the saber-tooth tigers, and all those guys are here. And you know who else is here? Native people. Those first native people who either came across the land bridge or by boats along the coast from Asia. And hunting bands of these people are moving through this landscape with their Clovis points, pursuing the megafauna. And as years go by, these people are in what you could even call an Eden. Things are just so beautiful here for them. Their numbers swell, that's as human numbers do when there's a bounty. Oh, you just heard some gunshots over there in the Nutmeg State as Connecticut is out there hunting the pheasant. I don't have my orange hat on, so I'm looking for hunters very carefully, and I feel like a jerk because I don't want to. There's a pheasant coming right there. But just imagine the native people populating the area, and maybe 1,700 years ago, 1,200 years ago, maize farming gets here. So now they don't have to wander, they become sedentary. And all the time that this is going on, they're using fire as a tool to drive herds of animals, to help them in their hunting, to clear the brush. And then when they begin to use, the native people are actually semi-sedentary. They don't have enough agricultural surplus to make it through the winter, so they have to supplement their life force with a mixture of agriculture and hunting. And that's true all the way down into Pennsylvania and maybe even beyond. But yeah, so the native people are in an Eden, and their population grows. They find out about maize farming and ultimately the Three Sisters plus tobacco, and the population grows. And all the while, over 10,000, 12,000 years of occupancy, they've been sculpting this landscape. Humans have had a role in sculpting the flora and the fauna of the Northeast since 30,000 years ago, 25,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, 12,000 years ago, whatever date you want to put on it. They began making this land their own land. And the people that you want to call Native Americans, really groups of hunters coming out of the Siberian tundra and taiga, will populate this land in groups, in stages, in steps. Some will rush way down south, others will stay as hunters near the glacial wastes and in the tundra. It all depends. Depends on what their gods told them to do, what their headmen told them to do, but they populate this land. And anyway, so we're looking at the look of the Northeastern Woodlands at the time of contact here in 1635 with William Pension coming up the Connecticut River. The Dutch already here would have seen this sort of landscape, and the settlers in the three Connecticut towns of Hartford, Wethersfield, and Windsor. They're going to come in and see the same kind of landscape. Thus, we have all the fields: Wethersfield, Springfield, Enfield, Suffield, Greenfield, Deerfield, Brookfield, and on we go. And I'm repeating myself. I've made videos like this before. Beautiful fall day. I thought I might find some hen of the woods. Didn't find any, but had a little stroll with the camera, so I get to bring it to you and maybe bore the hell out of you, or maybe you enjoyed it and learned something. I don't know, but we'll be bringing you more videos on fishing historic places in our field trip series. I really would like to bring some of my students out here and just walk them around. There's so much you can learn if you just walk around without your phone on, or you can use your phone to help you identify trees and help you identify rocks and plants. There's all kinds of great ID apps. They're not perfect. Don't go eat mushrooms based on the app. Of course, there's another gunshot. I better start running.